Recently, I've been going back and watching older anime. And by older anime, I mean that anime that came out before the 2000s. That doesn't mean I'm a retro anime fan now. The vast majority of anime I consume is still modern anime. Seasonal anime, more specifically. But it's a lot of fun to go visit anime from years far before my time, or when I was too young to know what anime was. Of course, this often makes it more difficult to discuss anime with people, as way too many people simply won't watch anime before they were born, which means they won't experience potentially amazing stories unless they get remade with modern art style and animation. But in recent years, this very thing has been happening a lot. I've been rather skeptical of many of them, but I'm not against the idea in general. My biggest issue is that it can literally make people forget about the original, even if the original is still fantastic in its own right. An example of this is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Ever since that series came out in 2009, almost nobody talks about the original Fullmetal Alchemist adaptation from 2003 anymore. Even though it's still great, and while I do think Brotherhood is better overall, the original anime has elements in it that I do feel are superior to Brotherhood. In my opinion, the best way to experience that series is to watch both versions of the anime back to back. And then there's Urusei Yatsura, that I hate with every fiber of my being, and yet has been immensely popular for over 4 decades and currently has a remake airing right now. Okay, let's back up first. Let's talk about Rumiko Takahashi. She's undoubtedly one of the most important mangaka of all time. I don't think I'd put her at the very top of the influential manga authors list, but she'd probably at least be in the top 10. The reason for this is quite simple. Back in the 1970s, female mangaka getting immense popularity and dominant female protagonists running the show was uncommon. Rumiko Takahashi with Urusei Yatsura helped change that, and all strong female protagonists in anime and manga in the decades to come could probably be solely attributed to her work. While I tremendously respect what Rumiko Takahashi did for anime and manga, I can't say that I enjoy her work. The only one I love is Inuyasha, and even that series can get rather annoying at times with how it treats its male characters. Rumiko Takahashi is the type of writer who writes her female characters strong, domineering, and overbearing at times. And the male characters are almost always eternally, unquestionably subservient to them. As far as legacy is concerned, I think this is tolerable because, again, back in her younger days, strong female characters, as well as popular female mangaka, were almost non-existent. Nowadays, both of these things are a dime a dozen, so I don't really think her style of writing is needed anymore. Before I continue, I want to say that if you love her work, you have every right to. I'm glad you're able to have fun. But as for me, especially when it comes to romantic relationships in anime and manga, I do prefer a bit more equality in the union, which is something that Rumiko Takahashi almost never does. And if you enjoy that, then more power to you, but that's something that I just can't find entertaining in any way. Like I said, the only one of her series that I love is Inuyasha, and even it has a lot of these annoying ass tropes. Inuyasha did a better job in balancing the power dynamics in the romantic relationships than any of her other works, but it still wasn't to the level that I would have liked. Still, that series will always have a place in my heart since I grew up with it. But anyways, Urusei Yatsura should be remembered because of its importance to the medium alone. I'd even say that this should convince you to at least give it an attempt yourself. And since the remake is currently airing, if you're the kind of viewer that doesn't like watching old anime because of the animation and art style change, then you won't have to worry about that anymore, at least until it's done. But if anything I described, which is absolutely the core of what makes up Urusei Yatsura, doesn't appeal to you, then don't expect a fun time. I actually watched 50 episodes of the original anime. I don't normally drop anime, but on the rare occasion that I do, it'll typically be way before that many episodes. Although perhaps that's because most anime nowadays don't last 50 episodes for a single season. It's usually like 12 or 13 episodes tops. Maybe 24, 25, or 26 episodes if we're lucky. But I trudged through 50 episodes of this series because I wanted to like it because of its importance to anime and manga. But at the end of the day, I just had to realize that I was doing almost nothing but suffering and hastening the death of my sanity, and had to call it quits. And I don't think I was even a third of the way through the original anime either. It's long as hell, and I only watched one of the 6 movies as well. I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm not offended by Urusei Yatsura or Rumiko Takahashi's writing in general. I don't care for it. Those are two completely different things. Being offended at something is akin to imposing your beliefs onto others, which ironically is likely the biggest thing that people who hate this series would hate about it, myself included. I just personally don't like it and wanted to explain why in a video, because that's also my right. Anyways, let's move on to the actual series itself. I was disappointed in a way because I was looking forward to watching this series for many years thanks to my strong positive feelings towards Inuyasha. Like I said before, there are elements in Inuyasha that annoy me, but I overall liked it. But Urusei Yatsura didn't scratch that same itch. Now that I've seen more of her work, I've concluded that Inuyasha might be the only one that I'm even capable of enjoying. And I really don't know how much of that is the nostalgia. I actually like the protagonist, Ataru, quite a bit, and I felt tremendously bad for him. It seems to be a consensus in the fandom that he's an asshole, but consider this for a moment. He's just a normal teenage boy who had the misfortune, yes, I said misfortune, of having a random woman barge into his life and automatically declare him her fiancé for some reason. I know that characters falling in love immediately, or at least very quickly, known as insta-love, is very common in anime and manga, but normally those feelings are at least partially mutual. The way it would normally work is that the male character is the first one to become smitten with the female character, and while the female character might not like him initially, but it doesn't take long for her to start developing feelings. Plus, they usually start with some kind of common ground, even if it takes forever for her to admit it, especially if she's a tsundere. In some more rare instances, the guy is the one who doesn't have feelings for the girl at first, and she expresses hers either by teasing him or, much to my own personal taste, being tsundere to him or being kind to him until he starts to share in her feelings. But in this case, they share seemingly absolutely nothing in common, and she's a random woman that just barges into his life, making it a living hell. The worst part is that his mother and father both think that he should be considered lucky that a hot girl wants to have anything to do with him, and this seems to be the consensus shared in the fandom as well, as if having some semblance of self-respect is considered being stupid or an asshole. And yes, I consider his reaction to Loom's antics to be self-respect. He has no obligation to respect a woman that he clearly doesn't care about at all, but he definitely should care about himself, because he's the one person that he has to live with for his entire life, no matter what. When watching anime, for someone like me, it's important to balance how much I care about realism versus creativity. This is likely something I'll talk about future on my channel, but in short, to a certain extent, I do care about realism. But normally that's only regarding character personalities and the way they react and interact with other characters, the world around them, and the situations they're thrown in. And with that criteria, that leaves for a wide variety of personality types, because humans are extraordinarily diverse and unique. In fact, most of the character personalities that other people would say aren't realistic, I don't tend to agree with, simply because of how complex that human emotions are. Many of them are perhaps over-exaggerated, but not necessarily unrealistic. Those are two different things. With that being said, one of the most realistic things I have seen in anime in a long, long time is Ataru's reaction to Loom annoying the shit out of him. And it's not that he doesn't recognize her as a hot girl. I definitely recall numerous moments when he fawns over her beauty and sexiness, as well as his other classmate. But then manages to snap himself back to reality and realize that he knows literally nothing about this chick, and the two of them most likely have nothing in common, and the fact that she barged into his life and started making it a living hell. Of course, I'm also well aware that this isn't going to last, as this is a rom-com, so he'll obviously end up with her eventually. Whenever I talk about the show online, or other shows like it, people always tell me that I shouldn't take it too seriously, or expect it to be realistic. First of all, I take that as a personal insult as someone who loves analyzing anime, and that statement goes against the very nature of critical analysis. But also, even though I do prefer when characters' personalities are realistic, it could be possible for me to enjoy if Ataru's personality was unrealistic. But it's not. While Loom being randomly attracted to him is unrealistic, and the idea of these two ending up together is phenomenally unrealistic, Ataru's reaction to her is 110% realistic. And this creates a juxtaposition that I don't think works very well, because the unrealistic elements tries to take me into a fantasy world that I can escape to, and that a part of me wants to escape to, if I'm being honest with you. But the realistic elements instantly takes me out of that fantasy world and reminds me that I'm watching a story, which in turn draws my attention to all of the flaws that I'm pointing out right now. If he was perhaps only slightly annoyed with her, or maybe even not at all, and instead partially, if not entirely, loved the fact that she randomly showed up and declared him her fiancé, while unrealistic, I would be more than willing to suspend my disbelief and indulge in the fantasy that Rumiko Takahashi clearly intended. As it stands, the realistic elements clash with the unrealistic elements in a way that instantly breaks my immersion. The only other element that is kind of realistic, sadly, is Ataru's parents. While of course not realistic for everyone, it is unfortunately a fact that many parents don't give a shit about their child, and so I can't say that this is unrealistic, but that realistic element unfortunately can't balance the unbalanced juxtaposition that I mentioned before, so my immersion remains shattered. If you're curious what I look for in romance anime and manga, my 5 absolute favorites from worst to best are Horimiya, Kaguya-sama Love is War, Toradora, My Dress-Up Darling, and Lovely Complex. While they're not masterpieces necessarily in my mind, Komi Can't Communicate and the Quintessential Quintuplets are ones that I also enjoy a tremendous amount, and others that are much lower in my opinion but still deserve positive shoutouts are Shakugan no Shana, The Familiar of Zero, Eureka 7, and Everyday Life with Monster Girls. There are others, as romance is among my favorite anime genres, believe it or not, but I'll stop right there. I may talk about more about some of these on my channel in the future, especially my 5 favorites, but I just wanted to mention these so you know what I consider to be good in romance anime and manga. Overall, this is a series I just can't get into, and I'm likely going to forego for the rest of my days. Like I said before, I wanted to enjoy it because of how important it is, which is why I got 50 episodes into it. I mean, without Rumiko Takahashi, we wouldn't have many other female mangaka, which includes the author of Sailor Moon, which is a crazy alternate reality to try and perceive, but also the author of Beastars, the author of Toradora, My Dress-Up Darling, and Lovely Complex, which I previously stated as some of my all-time favorite romance anime and manga, and the author of Demon Slayer, among so many others. But there comes a time when I just have to throw my hands up in the air and accept that I simply can't like it. I do have respect for it, however. Something that it seems to be difficult for many to understand is that you can have negative feelings about something but still respect it. I also don't see it as being as deep or interesting as Nagatoro, so that can't take me through it either, unfortunately. And that does it for me. In the comment section down below, let me know your thoughts on this video as well as on Urusei Yatsura and Rumiko Takahashi as a writer in general. Do you agree or disagree with any of my opinions and why for either? Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give a like and subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. Hit the notification bell if you want to know whenever I upload a new video, because I release new videos all the time. Comment on the video down below and share it around other platforms on the internet if you think it deserves it, such as YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit, etc. Try to get it and my channel more attention. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.